Hey, what's up, Superdads? I'm here today with an invitation for you. I'm going to invite you to join me for high intensity crap. So this is the name that I'm going to give a version of dog crap training that I'm going to be trying for the next couple months. Now, if you've never heard of dog crap, you might be wondering what the heck I'm on about here. But dog crap is actually, or dog crap or DC training is actually a pretty well established approach to hypertrophy training, though it also is quite good for developing strength as well. It's been around for quite a while now, and it was developed by a guy named Dante Trudel, who was, isn't so active these days, but was much more active, a decade or so ago. And dog crab training has a funny name. I'm not going to go into the backstory where the name comes from, but suffice to say, it's a funny name and easy to remember. So why am I doing this? Well, I'm off from school for a few months here, so that means I have some more extra time. I have a little more time to focus on recovery, on nutrition, that kind of stuff. And it also means I'll be training completely from my sort of veranda gym with free weights, dumbbells, that kind of stuff. Barbells, so no machines for the next couple months, and this is a kind of a training that lends itself very well to that kind of those kind of equipment. Lots of compound movements, things like squats, things like deadlifts, things like that are involved. Also, I just kind of want to switch things up. You've been doing the same thing for a while, and not that I think that there's absolutely a necessity to change your training in order to keep gains going, but psychologically I think it can help a lot to shift gears, try something new, see what works for you. If you don't keep expanding in your horizons and you don't keep trying new things, look, there's a good chance it won't work as well as what I have been doing, but I won't know unless I try. And it's very easy to get sort of stuck on top of a peak and say like, everything else that I've tried doesn't seem to work. And if you never try something that's completely different, you might not find out that there's another mountain somewhere else in the landscape that's higher than the one that you're on, and you won't know unless you try. So that's another reason why I'm going to give it a try. And the final reason is that right now my sort of big lifts, things like deadlifts and squats, are pretty abysmal. Like the numbers that I'm able to do are pretty abysmal because I haven't been training them. And really, a lot of it, there's a skill to it, and there's a neurological adaptation to having a heavy weight on your shoulders, for instance, and your body not freaking out and still being able to lift that stuff. And at this point, I can't do that really at all, like compared to where I used to be. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not still strong. I can do things now that I couldn't have done then. Just a different kind of strength, and I haven't really lost any muscle, so I'm not that worried about my overall strength. But it is fun to move heavy weights sometimes. Now, having said that, I'm not going to be going full power lift or anything here, and you'll find out what the dog crap approach to training is going to look like, and you'll see that it's not quite as risky as the powerlifting approach would be. Okay, so let's compare the two, that being dog crap and high intensity training. Dog crap training is actually a pretty well aligned with a lot of high intensity training principles. One being that it keeps the volume pretty low. So in a dog crap session, training session, you're only really going to do one exercise per sort of body part in general, right? So like if you're trying to hit your chest and you're trying to hit a pressing movement, you're only really going to do let's say a chest press or a bench press or a dip or something like that, and you're only going to do that exercise for your chest press style movement. And then you'll do an overhead press or a shoulder style press, and there's only one movement for that. Same goes for the back width, and then there's a back thickness exercise. Triceps, one exercise. So one exercise for each of these. So relatively speaking, the volume is very low compared to like most other bodybuilding style or higher volume approaches would be. Frequency is also pretty well aligned. So the frequency for a typical dog crap approach would be 3 training sessions a week. You're doing sort of upper, lower. It's not exactly that kind of split, and I'll explain the split in a few seconds here, but generally speaking, it's kind of an upper lower ABA, let's say ABA approach 3 times a week. So you're going to hit the same body part once every, it's about like twice every 8 days or something like that, right? So some weeks you'll hit your chest twice, Some weeks you'll hit your legs twice, whatever it is. Okay. But ABA repeated 3 times a week. Okay. So that's the frequency. So in, looking at that, that would be what? I train my chest on Monday. I train it again on Friday, for example, in 1 week, right? And that's, that's a bunch of recovery time. It's a bunch of recovery time. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, three full days of recovery between. Now, I am doing other stuff, so there is systemic fatigue, but still, compared to a lot of other programs, much lower frequency than you might see elsewhere. Okay? There's also a very high emphasis on training to failure. Pretty much every set in dog crab training is taken to failure. Every set. I say pretty much because there's a little bit of gray area when you get to things like the squats and things like the back thickness exercises, like a deadlift, these sorts of things. But you're going to be pushing either all the way to momentary muscular failure or to sort of, you don't have another rep. It's not 1 rep in reserve. It's the next rep will be my failure rep point. Okay, either one of those. And then finally, there's a huge emphasis on progressive overload. The point of dog crab training is to take these generally compound movements, not all of them, but generally compound movements that are known to hit a lot of muscles very effectively, and then improve them week over week, session over session, either by adding repetitions or by adding weight each time you go. And so that's really similar to the kind of HIIT training that I've been doing, where when I do my whatever leg press it is, let's say leg press, I'm timing it, and the next time I go back to hit that leg press, I'm trying to get more seconds under tension until I exceed some phase shift number of seconds, at which point I will up the weight and sort of reset and go again. So really trying to progressively overload, increasing what you're doing each and every time. So lots of meticulous tracking and that kind of stuff. Okay, so a lot of similarities there. Now, the split, the A-B split. The A workouts, and generally there's going to be 2 A workouts. So it'll be A1, B1, A2, B2. But all of the A workouts are going to go in this order. First, you're going to do some sort of chest exercise. So examples would be things like bench presses. It would be like dips. You could even do, push-ups, anything like that. Incline press, right? Then you're going to do a shoulders exercise. So overhead press. If you have access to a machine press, seated dumbbell press. You could do things like lateral raises, upright rows, this sort of thing. Okay. So chest, shoulders, then triceps. You can do a tricep exercise. Then you're going to go with a back width exercise. So this would be some sort of vertical pull, generally, like a pull up or a lat pull, like pull down, right? Lateral pull down, these sorts of things. Okay, and then finally there's a back thickness exercise. So this would be some sort of row, but you could also put deadlifts and things in here. And the way that I'm approaching this, because I've had a lot of gained a lot of benefits or had a lot of luck recently with training for lower back strength. It's really helped with low back pain. Is I'm gonna do deadlifts on one of my workouts there, and then on the other one I'll be doing rows and Jefferson curls. And if you don't know what Jefferson curls are, I believe I have a video on it somewhere. But really, they're fantastic. So I'm kind of adding a little bit, making my own little modifications. Okay, so that's the order for the A workouts. Then for the B workouts, it's going to go calves and biceps. Sounds strange, but it works out for me. By putting calves first, I'm really, able to push those hard, and my calves are genetically crap, so I like putting those first. And biceps. Why would you put biceps? Well, because as we get into the later stuff, we're actually going to do forearms after biceps, so something like a hammer curl or something like that, and then hamstrings, and finally quads. Okay, quads last. Might sound strange, but the reason is going to be that we're going to finish the quad exercise. Will probably be some sort of squat. For me, it's going to be a back squat or something like that. And at the end of the quad workout, you're going to be so fried that you're not really going to have much left in the tank for anything else. So that's the thought process there. in terms of this split, it's an interesting split, one that you might not, be too familiar with, but it does make a lot of sense in terms of pushing the progressive overload angle. Because, like, let's say we put biceps with the upper body stuff. Okay, but where do we put that if we're going to be doing, two back exercises, a vertical pull, horizontal pull, for example? Because if we put the bicep stuff before that, then our arms are fatigued and we probably won't be able to, overload each time or increase each time. If we put the biceps last, well, then our bicep exercise, there's a very little chance that we'd be increasing our numbers doing the bicep exercise because we'll be pushing it so hard on the various pull exercises. So it does make a lot of sense to split them up this way when you think about it. That way. It's also interesting to put the back thickness that includes things like deadlifts on the A workouts because deadlifts. It certainly does work your back. It strengthens your lower back 100%. It can even develop your mid back and back thickness. Absolutely. A lot of people have built impressive backs from doing primarily deadlifts. But it's also posterior chain, just the entire thing, right? So glutes and hamstrings and all that kind of stuff is involved as well. So you're actually getting a little bit more frequency on those by doing it this way. Okay, so that's the breakdown of the A-B split. Now, what makes the dog crap approach kind of special or unique? One thing is its emphasis on rest pause sets. So rest pause sets, if you're not familiar with them, you're going to push it. The way that dog crap does it is you're going to push your initial set all the way to failure, to momentary muscular failure. You set the weight down, then you're going to take a few seconds, really keep this short, and the general recommendation is like something between 10 to 15 seconds, something like that. I'm not going to time it. I'm going to do it with breaths because in my experience, this is a great way to do something like a rest pause because it forces you to control your breathing. And if you make a point of you finish, you reach failure, you drop the weight, and then you force yourself to breathe through your nose slowly and deeply, the more control you're able to exert over your respiration, over your recovery, the more time you have to do it. But if you're sort of like panicked and this sort of thing, right, and you're not in control of your body, then your time is going to go quick. And so it really will punish you for not being mindful and being really into the exercise and controlled as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to do probably about 5 breaths. Okay, so I reach failure, take 5 breaths, pick the weight up, and do as many as I can to a momentary muscular failure a second time. Put the weight down, 5 breaths, and then do a third one of that to, again, momentary muscular failure. So you're actually reaching momentary muscular failure 3 times with most exercises in the span of, you reach your first failure, a few breaths, second failure, a few breaths, third failure. You're probably reaching momentary muscular failure about 3 times within the span of a minute. So that's accumulating a lot of time near failure, which is my pet concept that I think is really what you should be focusing on for hypertrophy. And so I really love the rest pause approach. It saves a ton of time. It keeps you close to failure, so you don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing a whole lot of extra reps just to get back there again. So it adds time near failure without adding a whole lot of volume or time to the workout, which is great for preventing injuries and being efficient with your time and all that kind of stuff. Now, almost every one of the exercises you do will be done in this rest pause style. And so this, like as an example, you would say like dips say are done rest pause style, and so the target is somewhere between I think 11 and 15 for the total. So you'd want to weight up your dips if you need it, but let's say you reach failure at like 8 the first time, right? Okay, you reach failure at 8, you do your rest pause, you do another one, and you get 3 more. That puts you at 11. You do your rest pause, you get another one, and you only get 1 this last time, and then you hit failure. And you don't count the failure rep as one of them, right? Well, then that would put you at 12 total. So you're in a good target there. That's between 11 and 15. So the next time you'd want to try to get a total of 13 or 14 or 15. And once you're doing more than 15 with all of the cumulative rest pause reps included, then you increase the weight and try to push it again. Okay, so that's how the rest pause stuff works. Now, not every exercise is done rest pause style. The two that are not are going to be your quad exercise, like a squat, something like that, and your back thickness exercise. So like a deadlift, right? Just for safety's sake. Those are done with just straight sets, 2 straight sets, and the rep count depends on the exercise. But, let's say you do deadlifts, okay, you're targeting between 8 and 12 each time. So it's slightly higher, volume, like rep count than you would generally, most people would think of for something like a deadlift. But in my experience, that's a very good thing, right? Most of the injuries with something like a deadlift are going to happen when you're trying to go from, the 1 to 3, you're trying to go the 1 rep max, you're trying to go to, these sorts of things. And it also requires way more warm up to get there, which is just adding reps and reps and reps that aren't actually producing any hypertrophic effect to speak of. I mean, nothing really to write home about, at least. So staying in this 8 to 12 space is safer, in my opinion, and it also is going to, have a greater hypertrophic effect. Okay, so those are just straight sets, and so you do a set of, let's say, 10. Okay, you reach failure there, or one rep shy of failure. Let's say if I were going to reach momentary muscular failure on the 11th one, where I'd get stuck halfway up and just have to drop the weight, then I'll try to stop at 10. Right? So then I would just take a minute break and do another one. So it's just 2 sets. Okay. Same thing with squats, except with squats or your quad exercise, you also have the option to do what's called a Widowmaker set at the end. So you do your 2 sets as normal, and then for a sort of third set, you can do a Widowmaker. Now, a Widowmaker is breathing squats. So this is where you have it racked on your back, and you do as many as you can, and until you're like basically out of breath just from doing it. So this is probably going to be a lighter weight, right? I'll drop the weight down, somewhat significantly, maybe working weight, drop it by about 70%, not drop it by about 30%. So it's only 70% on my working weight, and see how many I can get. And maybe I get like 10 without pausing. Okay. And then I'm like just out of breath and I don't think I can get another one. I take some breaths with the bar still on my back and go as soon as I can. And then take some breaths and go as soon as I can. This is fantastic for stressing the cardiorespiratory system, but it also adds a ton of time near failure to your legs, because you're basically just waiting a few seconds until you're recovered enough to get another one, and a few seconds until you're recovered enough to get another one. So you're never recovering so fully that you have to do a bunch of junk volume to get to the point that you're close to failure. So the goal for a Widowmaker is 20 to 25 reps of these sorts of breathing squats, and if you do it right, you will absolutely be knackered at the end of it, which is why it comes at the end of the B workouts rather than the beginning. Okay, so those are the Widowmakers and how you would approach the different rep counts and everything for each of the things. Okay, then the program also emphasizes something called weighted stretching, which is where at the end of the exercises for which it's appropriate, you're going to sort of let the weights hang. Like, let's say you did a dip, you reached, you went through your rest pause, you got to the end, and you go into that sort of stretched out position at the bottom. You keep tension in the muscle as you're feeling that stretch. And look, there is research showing that this sort of weighted stretch approach on its own can build muscle, even if you're not doing any other exercises. I really like doing it. You feel the burn, you feel the blood rushing in, the metabolites, all this kind of stuff. It gives you a crazy pump. I recommend it. It's part of my Synergy strength programs, pretty much all of them, wherever it's appropriate. So you'd put that in as well. Okay, so there are a couple tweaks that I'm making to the traditional dog Crapp program, which is why I'm calling it high intensity Crapp. One would be, I'm going to really focus on the control of the reps, right? So whereas somebody who's just trying to push the envelope on progressive overload, they just want to increase their numbers each time, might start, speeding up the reps and really just trying to get through them. I've certainly been there. That's a recipe for injury over time. So I'm going to keep mine controlled, at least the negative portion of the rep, try to keep it around 3 to 5 seconds for the negative portion of the rep. Okay. And then for the positive portion of the rep, I'll do it not as slow, still controlled, but somewhat more explosively. Okay, then also intraset, I'm going to get rid of any rest. So let's say I'm doing squats. I'm not going to stop at the top and lock my knees out and then do another one and stop at the top and lock my knees out, because I think that this gives you more of a chance to recover than it just gives you a chance to recover and reduces your proximity to failure unnecessarily. Doesn't really help. I want to aggressively fatigue the muscles. So what this is going to mean is that my numbers for this are going to be way lower than people who are doing it in a traditional bodybuilding approach where they're locking out and that kind of stuff. I'm going to keep a shortened range of motion, keep the tension in the muscle, focus on control. So my numbers, the amount of weight I'm lifting is going to be much lower, but I'll try to stay honest and make sure that I'm keeping this consistent across the entire program. I'll be doing this program for the next 8 weeks. 8 weeks is the recommendation for it, after which it's recommended that you do a sort of deload because it can be hard on the body at that point. So at that point, I'll probably just switch back to what I was doing before and see how it goes. Be tracking my numbers, and at the end of the 8 weeks, I'll let you know how everything goes. But I said at the beginning, this is an invitation because I want to invite anybody who wants to give this style of training. I want to invite you to join me with it. I made the Excel file for this. It's got all 8 weeks. The exercises don't change, but there's spaces there to put in what weight you're working with and sets, and it's got all the exercises laid out there. So that link will be down below. It's not an Excel, it's a Google sheet. Now you won't be able to edit it because I don't want you to edit it. I'm going to be putting in my numbers there. But what I recommend is that you just copy and paste or make a copy of it that you can use for yourself. Because as I'm using that sheet, I might be making changes and things that I want. So I would recommend that you make your own copy. Otherwise, you won't be able to necessarily use it. Also, of course, you'd probably want to switch out some of the exercises as you see fit. I included some things on there like supplemental exercises, like some isometrics, some band work and things like that don't cause a whole lot of damage to get, just to touch muscles that I have a little bit more trouble developing with lower volume. But it's down there, so if you're interested, go ahead and take a look, and I invite you again to join me on this journey into high-intensity crap. Thanks for watching. Take it easy, everyone.